Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Lucy.
I'm Zara.
Imagine working really hard at something for most of your life and never really feeling like that many people are paying attention until one day you wake up and everyone's paying attention, cheering your name, screaming your lyrics at you, and you're the biggest artist in the world. That's basically what's happened recently to singer Chappell Roan. In today's deep dive, we'll explore how that's happened. Is Chappell Roan really an overnight success, or is there more to the story?
So Lucy, you are a long-standing Chappell Roan fan, and I think that is an important note to start on because not many people are, and that is the whole point of this podcast, that Chappell Roan, who, if you missed it, is a ginormous superstar at the moment, has seemingly, for people that haven't been paying close attention, come out of nowhere. And it's kind of brought to the forefront a whole lot of conversations about how people get famous nowadays, what the kind of music life cycle looks like and what it means for the artists themselves. And so I thought who better to bring onto the pod than Lucy Tassell, the OG Chappell Roan fan. With that title now bestowed upon you, can you start from the beginning? Tell us what we should know about her.
Absolutely. Chappell Roan is the creation of a singer named Kaylee Rose Amstutz, a 24-year-old from the US state of Missouri. She has kind of created Chappell Roan as her drag character, basically, is what she says, a persona that she puts on for the stage. So she began as a teenager by uploading songs to YouTube, very much reminiscent of Justin Bieber, who also got his start in the same way. Eventually, like Justin Bieber, she was noticed by a major label, Atlantic Records, who signed her to a contract when she was just 17.
So that was a number of years ago.
Several years ago now, yes, because she's now in her mid-20s. New Chappell fans might be surprised to know that that label actually dropped her at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, right after she released a single that you've probably heard playing somewhere over the last few months called Pink Pony Club.
That song is now going to be stuck in my head for the remainder of the day. But, we're talking about 2020 there. This song is now huge in 2024. What happened between being, someone that was dropped by a label to where she is now?
Without her label's backing, she had to go home to Missouri, where she began working part-time jobs and writing her own music. Over the next couple of years, so over 2021 and 2022, she really built up a very loyal following through social media, which is how I first came across her on TikTok.
Was it TikTok?
It was TikTok. It was Pink Pony Club in a TikTok. And I said, who's that?
Yeah.
And through basically relentless touring. And then she released her debut album, which is called The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, through an independent label in September 2023. This caused her to pick up a little bit more steam, so much so that she could tour internationally, including here to Australia last November. And then off the back of that, she got booked to perform at Coachella, which is a huge California music festival that is live streamed globally. And that is really where everything changed.
And so to recap, you're saying that there was this kind of slow burn that over time, she was touring internationally, but by no means was she filling out a stadium or anything of that nature, like indie kind of venues. And then this year it was Coachella. So that was a big turning point. Is that right? Like what did that lead to? I mean, I saw the clips everywhere, but what happened from there?
Well, you and basically everyone
the
else
whole rest of the world
saw those clips. I really can't overstate how big of a moment that was. Those clips, they just went so viral.
I hate to say, I told you so, I hate to say, but I told you so.
And we actually have data to show exactly how impactful that was. There's this graph that was made by music statistics platform Chartmetric that shows exactly how influential it was. You can see there's a key inflection point. She's building quite slowly, and then basically the graph goes directly up in the air, 90 degrees in terms of her sales, her streams, the engagement with her accounts. All of this immediately skyrockets. It's very dramatic.
Wow.
We're talking about going from the hundreds of thousands to the tens of millions in the space of about a month, and only continuing to grow from there. Currently, her Spotify monthly listeners are at about 44 million.
Wow. I mean, it's just incredible, and that's just bound to grow. Every time I open TikTok, it's, you know, another video about Chappell Roan. What do we actually know about who her listeners are? Where are these masses coming from?
Yeah, these 44 million monthly listeners, they are not just kind of putting it on in the background listeners. They are very dedicated fans. They show up in droves to her US summer festival performances. They wear pink cowboy hats like the Pink Pony Club. They start fan accounts on social media. They've all learned the dance to one of her songs, Hot to Go. These fans are extremely, extremely dedicated and extremely, extremely hungry for a piece of Chappell Roan, I think is the way to put it. And that is, you know, tens of thousands of people showing up to these festivals in a very short amount of time, all kind of collecting around, you know, the one stage where she's going to perform. And it's all just been incredibly intense and fast.
And that's something that's come out this week, because Chappell Roan herself has issued a number of statements and made a number of videos about the boundaries that she's looking to set for herself as a public figure now who has attracted this fame almost, you know, overnight. Talk to me about what we've seen there about and what it means about kind of modern day fandom.
The level of fandom around Chappell Roan is reminding me of kind of previous fandoms. It's reminding me of Beatlemania. It's reminding me of the fandom around One Direction, the way that very quickly a very, very dedicated fan base has kind of sprung up. It's understandable that it would make someone who, as of April, had about 1 million fans, feel very unsafe. So she said, quote, "I feel more love than I ever have in my life. I feel the most unsafe I have ever felt in my life." It has been alleged that a fan found out her family's address, just very scary stuff with almost no time to adjust to it. That has really reminded me of another one of my favorite artists, Charli XCX, who might say the same thing, that her entire life has changed in the last few weeks.
Talk me through that. Why would she say that?
Well, so she's over a decade into her career, but I would say that this year is the year when she truly became a household name. And that is because of her new album, Brat, which even if you only listen to ABC Classical, it has been impossible to escape the phrase brat or brat summer. And part of that is because it became a meme, but it also is just, it's a very simple concept to grasp. It's confidence, it's imperfection, it's just, I'm a brat and I'm unapologetic about that. And that's reflected in the music, it's reflected in the aesthetics that she's curated, all of these things surrounding Charli XCX. And it was so graspable that the new campaign for new presidential candidate Kamala Harris actually rebranded all of its social media to say Kamala HQ in the style of the album cover of Brat. It is bananas to think that a possible future president of the United States has had to be briefed on Charli XCX.
But I mean, Charli XCX and Chappell Roan are almost opposites in that Charli XCX has had this really long career that has certainly picked up with a whole lot of momentum, but it has had that longevity to it, which I imagine is very different to what we're seeing with Chappell Roan, right?
Yeah, exactly. Chappell Roan obviously had been working for a long time to become famous, but the rise was so steep. Whereas for Charli XCX, it's kind of a different model of fame where it was much more of a slow burn in terms of slowly increasing the size of the venues she played, the number of people who listened to her, the number of people who've heard of her, going from quite niche to quite mainstream over the course of more than a decade with some other kind of, she also had like big mainstream moments in between. Like we would all know the song Boom Clap or the song Boys, these kind of big pop moments interspersed throughout a very long career that has now culminated in this huge cultural moment of household name status.
Both of the artists that we have spoken about today are international artists. They are absolutely not Australian. Do we think that Australians can get access to these sorts of kind of steep rises to fandom, or do you think that's something that's uniquely held by those outside of our very small country?
I'll start by saying that there are, of course, extremely successful Australian artists on the world stage. I mean, one of Charli XCX's collaborators, Troye Sivan, is on a world tour right now, and he's had some very significant kind of viral TikTok
Yeah.
moments with his last album, Something to Give Each Other. And of course, there's the kid Leroy, who we really can't discount how incredible it is to see a young First Nations kid who grew up in public housing on the world stage, like a really huge artist. But when I consider, like, for example, how Chappell Roan came to fame, I struggle to see those pathways for Australian artists.
Why is that? Is that because we know that festivals were that important in her rise, or was it TikTok? Like, what do you think separates that from happening for an Australian?
Yeah, I mean, the festival aspect is so crucial. Australian festivals have shut down left and right, and those ones that do exist, it's not as though they are running live streams that people around the world would invest in or want to spend time watching. Those opportunities, to my eyes, just simply don't exist. It's also true that Australian artists have to fight for space on the Australian charts alongside people like Chappell and like Charlie. And while TikTok is one way of kind of being a democratizing force in the industry, it's not perfect. We saw earlier this year, Universal Music Group pulled all of its artists' music from the platform because of concerns around AI and compensation, and then put the music back. But for some artists that had taken away the momentum that they needed to launch an album successfully or, you know, just interrupted their flow. TikTok can't be a load-bearing presence in your career. It can only be part of it.
I mean, I do want to end on that note because I've learned so much about these artists because of TikTok. And my question to you is, do you think that they could have achieved this success without TikTok?
To me, no. The way that I think about TikTok in terms of the way that it launches music careers is I think about TikTok is the new TV in that sense. When we think about how the Beatles got their US audience because they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was watched by 73 million people. The idea of there being like a central kind of hub that, I mean, it's about the loss of the mainstream, right? TikTok is the new mainstream. TikTok is the place where you can successfully get 73 million sets of eyes pointed at you if you're lucky, and you can kind of, and the algorithm works in your favor. So that's how I think about it. But it's not, it's a pretty blunt weapon.
It's really interesting, and I mean a really challenging, but I guess on the flip side, hopefully exciting environment for up-and-coming artists to be in, and to see the growth that we have seen for so many artists. Lucy, thanks for joining us today. And thank you for tuning into this episode of The Daily Aus. This week we covered a whole range of topics. You can't say that we are not looking for diversity in our topics here at The Daily Aus. On Monday we had the legal right to ignore your boss. On Tuesday we had, do you want to get a refund on your cancelled flight? Then we had an interview about whether Australia's hospitality industry is toxic. Yesterday, we spoke about the new harsh laws that have been introduced in Afghanistan, and today we're talking about the music industry. If you learned something from any of these topics, please send the Daily Aus podcast around to your friends. It's the way that we grow. We'll be back again on Monday morning, but until then, have a great weekend.